Hello, my name is Miss Moore White. I am a graduate of King Drew, class of 2008. And then I later left King Drew and went to Tuskegee University, class of 2014. And now, in last year, I got my credential from Cal State Dominguez Hills in 2019. I've worked at King Drew. I started as a sub in April of 2016, and then I was hired as a long-term sub, or eventually got hired full-time in January of 2017. So going on like 4.5 years now. It's been a while. I think it was my graduating from college. I had a job right out of college where I would travel around the nation with different high schoolers, going to Colorado, going to DC, going to Louisiana, going to Tennessee, going to a plethora of places, including ranches and camps and things like that. And when I was out there, especially when I was in DC, I was really just having a great time, just talking about history and sharing the facts that I knew. I've always loved government. I've always loved history ever since I was a child. And I used to wake up first thing in the morning with my dad and talk about current events. And then from there, it just led to my love of politics, and then eventually running for city council in college. And then once I graduated, working with that company. And then it just was like, hey, I want to actually have a relationship with some students and not just see them for one trip and never see them again. I want to actually be able to build a relationship, build rapport, build connection with students. And then it just so happened that King Drew had a space for me, and that's why I came to King Drew. King Drew culture is high expectations, high rigor, but love. I feel like King Drew, for me, I can talk about my own personal experience going through King Drew. The King Drew culture was totally about getting your work done, totally about being on task, being on target, looking appropriate, dressing the part, wearing the uniform, but not just looking the part, but actually like doing the work after you look the part as well. So the culture has always been about high rigor, high expectation, and as I said previously, love. Some of the first teachers who ever sat me down and were like, "What is wrong with you? Why aren't you succeeding to the level that we know you can succeed to?" That was in high school. And I had never had a teacher look at me and not just about academic things, like, how are you doing as a person? What's going on with you as a person? And why aren't you meeting the expectations that they had for me during that time period? So that's how I think about King Drew culture. People who love on you, people who care about you, but they also have some high expectations for what they want you to accomplish because they know you can accomplish these things. I would recommend King Drew for eighth grade students because it gives you what you need to go on to the next level. I think choosing your high school is a huge part of what you do in your life. And so choosing King Drew can really fortify your child, or you, if you're the eighth grader, it can fortify you and really give you all the tools that you need, not just to graduate high school, but to graduate in life and be successful in life. My own personal experience, some of the things that I learned in high school at King Drew from 2004 to 2008, I still use in my life, and those tools and resources got me to where I am today. So that is why I think King Drew should be chosen. But then also, the teachers are there for you, the staff is there for you. When I was at King Drew, whatever I wanted to do, as long as it was within reason and I could have a sponsor for it, I could make a club for it, or I could have an event, or whatever it was. So it just gave me the opportunity and the chance to kind of spread my wings a little bit more and fly in ways that maybe other high schools would not have been able to provide for me. I teach two different history classes. So I'm a history nerd. I didn't say that in the beginning of the video, but I teach history. I teach AP World History and I teach Honors US History. I have very similar approaches to those classes. The amount of work in those classes is definitely completely different. But the AP course is all about that rigor, all their constant assignments, even in the midst of this pandemic. But for me, having a culturally relevant and a culturally competent classroom is the best way that I can get buy-in from my students. It's the best way that I can get the desired results. So what I mean by culturally relevant and culturally competent. So all the things that I mentioned about my background, coming from King Drew, going to a historically black college, Tuskegee University, running for city council, the political edge. So I bring all of that into my classroom with my students. So when I'm talking about something like the Mongols in between 1000 and 1300, well, I'm going to find a way to compare those Mongols to what's happening to this day. So all of my history is related to what happens today. Even if it happened 3,000, 4,000 years ago, there's still going to be some kind of connection that students can see and latch onto and hold on to. So that's pretty much my approach when it comes to delivering content. When it comes to preparing students for their future, that's a part of the cultural competency. So I feel like a lot of my job is to provide content that students didn't have, that I personally didn't have access to when I was in high school. I remember when I was in high school, history looked very white to me, looked very Eurocentric. I didn't see myself in the culture. I didn't see myself in the textbook. And if I did see myself, it was as a slave or as some kind of negative person throughout history. And if it was good, it was like, here's one line. Look, there's Booker T. Washington. He created a school. Oh, and that's just not at all what I wanted for myself or for my students. So to prepare them for their future, I feel like it's my duty to give you history that is actually relevant to your everyday life. It's actually relevant to things that you're going to need. That's not putting aside some of the more classical or Eurocentric history, but it's just emphasizing the culture that's in my classroom, the people that I'm looking at, so they can actually see themselves, feel a part of history, and know that they also can do great things in history, no matter what their age, no matter what their color, no matter their immigration status, no matter any of those things. So that's how I kind of think about preparing my students for their future. Like, what do they need today? What content do they need today that's going to help them in the future? That's going to help their everyday lives. And, sometimes I've realized that maybe it's not reading the Declaration of Independence. Maybe it's showing some other declaration that was done by Black and brown people, Black, brown, and Asian people, and showing how they were able to use their voices in the midst of colonialism, imperialism, and things like that. All right, I think that's it. So I hope I answered all the questions the way I was supposed to. Yeah, come to King Drew. It's the best.